This is the man who loved Nero's. It's me. This is ancient Rome, and you're watching this channel. Suetonius described him as having the heart of a woman and the liver of a savage beast. But the emperor didn't know what it meant. He only knew that he wanted the beautiful slave for his own. According to Cassius Dio, the emperor offered Sporus to his friends, boasting, "Behold my wife," and insisted that they call him Empress. But then he decided that Sporus needed a role, so he set out to make him Empress, and he had him ride in a chariot drawn by 8 white horses. Suetonius adds that Nero put on a play where Sporus played the part of the goddess of chastity, all the while making obscene gestures and winking at the audience. And he continued to insist that he wasn't just a slave, he was the reborn That's when he came across Pygmalion, a freed woman whom he married after seeing her dancing at a party. But he didn't like her very much, and quickly abandoned her. A few months later, Nero was dead, executed by his own mother, Agrippina, along with his wife. Sporus and a bunch of other prisoners were freed. But Sporus's torment wasn't over. So when he saw Sporus, he locked onto him as his new wife. Others say he was enslaved again and forced to fight as a gladiator. Some say he ended up in a brothel where he prostituted himself for food and drink. And others claim that he wandered the streets begging, wearing rags and painfully thin. All we know for sure is that he hated his life and could unstand being called the name that had haunted him for so long. So he killed himself, taking his own life rather than live another day as Nero's wife. And again, whether it was truly love, a mere infatuation, or some sick desire to replace Poppaea, it doesn't matter. It's a story of unbelievable cruelty, but it's also a story of survival. Because no matter how hard Nero tried, he could never break Sporus' spirit. And no matter what cruel masters he might have suffered under, he still chose death over dishonor. All that matters is that Nero forced a young slave into the role of emperor, parading him through the streets, sleeping with him in sacred temples, and forcing him to kiss him in public. Now, we don't know why Nero was so obsessed with his dead wife, but it may have something to do with how she died. And he endured the emperor's whims, whatever they may have been. But when Nero's sister died, he became convinced that she had been killed by poison. And he started to suspect Sporus, accusing him of killing both his wife and now his sister. And here's where the story takes a dark turn, because Suetonius tells us that Nero tortured Sporus, inserting red-hot ashes into his genitals and beard, branding him and whipping him. According to Suetonius, Poppaea got pregnant right after the couple made love on a couch. Then suddenly she was dead, killed by Nero's kick, which either sent her into premature labor or directly to her grave. But however she died, it was obvious that Nero felt guilty. As the author of the 12 Caesars, he wrote after this, his wife, Poppaea, who was as yet but little advanced in pregnancy, died under a kick from his foot, though he was not conscious of having done her any harm. Nor did he believe that he had given her any blow of unusual force, for such was the state of his mind that he dreaded lest he should be accused of child murder, and was even ready to believe that he had been struck by divine retribution. And to prove how serious he was about this bizarre relationship, Nero took Sporus with him on tour throughout Greece. We do not know if he genuinely believed that Sporus was his wife returned, or if he was just messing with his poor slave. And while there, he defiled the sacred site by engaging in sexual acts with the slave. In Sparta, he unleashed poisonous snakes into the audience at the theater, killing and maiming hundreds of people. And then he turned to Sporus and said, "Look how much your Spartans love you." Suetonius adds that Nero compelled Sporus to kiss him in public, once even pushing him toward the elder senator Thrasea, and shouted, "See that you are not angry with the Empress." It was too much. Senators and courtiers rolled their eyes. Common folk scoffed. The entire empire was laughing at its emperor. But Nero couldn't care less. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe it was all just one big game for the emperor. But, whatever the case, he threw himself into the charade. Sporus was paraded through the streets of Rome in fine linen and purple robes, riding in golden chariots with a canopy and attended by 8 female slaves. When the crowds cheered, Nero beamed. This was his masterpiece, the ultimate trophy, the dead wife reborn. He immediately had him castrated, wrapped in silks and jewels, and presented to the court as his new wife. And in a ceremony worthy of their peculiar bond, Nero dressed as a woman and walked down the aisle as Sporus entered as the bride. He delighted in throwing gold coins from his tower, enjoying the sight of common folk fighting over the riches. He hosted feasts inviting 8 men of only one type, bald, short, or fat. At these parties, he dressed as a woman and prostituted himself in taverns and brothels. He chained women to chariots like horses and whipped them as they pulled them around. He hosted athletic competitions, inviting 8 pairs of bald, short or fat men and women of only one type, bald, short or fat. And he built golden chariots to race around his private gardens, driving not horses, but elephants. It was the summer of 62 AD, and Rome was sweltering under a brutal heat wave. Even the river Tiber seemed to be wilting in the sun. And so began one of the weirdest, wildest stories in all of ancient Rome, a tale of unhinged desire, unimaginable excess, and a disturbing obsession that would change the course of one man's life forever. So when Emperor Nero strolled into the gardens of his mother's home, looking for some place to cool off. He must have thought that he'd found paradise. There in a secluded grotto sat a handsome young slave with the face of an angel and the body of a god. His name was and according to legend, when Nero laid eyes on him, he was struck by Cupid's arrow, or maybe it was just the heat making him lightheaded. Either way, history remembers this moment as the most insane of an already insane life. You see, the thing about Sporus was that he looked exactly like Poppaea Sabina, Nero's late wife, the same wife that he had kicked to death while she was pregnant. Nero had been famous since before he became emperor. Everyone knew he was a monster. So when a new slave arrived at the imperial palace, looking exactly like Nero's dead wife, he should have known that things would get weird. It was a sham marriage, but it was also real. For weeks, Nero enjoyed showing off his prize, delighting in how shocked everyone else was. Cassius Dio tells us that Nero ordered Sporus to wear a golden girdle worth 30 talents, enough to make any man feel like a king. When he visited the Acropolis in Athens, he chained Sporus to the altar of the goddess Athene. He lavished expensive gifts on Sporus, including a pearl necklace worth 100 talents. But either because he really believed that, or because he felt guilty and wanted to replace her, Nero quickly set out to find a new wife. For years, Sporus lived as Nero's husband. He traveled with him. He watched him perform. And in the end, Nero threw him into prison with a curse, saying that Sporus would never leave alive. We don't know who took him next, but the new master chained him up in a chariot like a horse and whipped him as he pulled him around. His story is one of the strangest in all of ancient history, the tale of a handsome young man whose life was stolen, whose body was violated and whose identity was destroyed. This has been the story of the man who loved Neris. And remember, Rome was never built in a day, but it fell in one.